Oh, hi, everybody. How are you doing today? Tekking and Barry back again. It's fair season right now, so my mom's downstairs baking a bunch of cookies and brownies and all sorts of stuff. This is a double, triple, maybe quadruple chocolate chip cookie. I don't know. There's a lot of chocolate in this, and it's right out of the oven. Kind of sucks that I'm just going to eat this in front of all of you. I don't know what to say. I hope you guys have cookies as well. So, yeah, but... my God. So good. Okay. We'll get to the video in a second. Just let me enjoy this. Hold on. Okay, so, yeah, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, okay. Do you guys realize that, like, there's, more mythical zones in One Piece as of late? Yeah. For something that was referred to once by Kizaru as, like, the rarest variety of devil fruit that exists. Remember when Marco first showed up at Marineford using his phoenix powers, and everyone was like, holy crap, he could turn into a phoenix? And Kizaru's like, it's even rarer than the Logia class. And so it was like, whoa, mythical creatures, the possibilities here are endless. Although Kizaru did say they were pretty rare, so we're probably not going to see that many of them in the story. Yeah, well, you know what? That's the secret, I guess. They were all in Wano this whole time, all right? So we have right now 7 confirmed canon mythical zone fruits. And out of those 7, we have 4 of them that are in Wano country right now. Technically, we have 8, and 5 of them are in Wano, if you count Momo's artificial dragon zone. But, you know, you could say that's a copy of Kaido's, which it is, so it's not really a mythical zone on its own. It's just like a copy of one that already exists. But still, we have like 4 mythical zones in Wano right now, 3 additional ones that were actually non-canon, one wielded by Patrick Redfield that has the mythical Bato no Mi. So there you go. There's your bat facts for the day. No, we have another one for later, but here's your bat fact. He's a vampire. Also, he has a pet pen that ate the mythical, it's like a variety of tanuki, so it's a pen that can turn into a tanuki. And then there was also the character from the One Piece X Kyoto thing, which was like before Wano was actually released in the manga, so there was like a different, like, parallel version of Wano, where there's this dude that can turn into a Nue, which is a Japanese yokai, so whatever. But yeah, a lot of mythical zones. And in the last Fever card, we actually found out that there's another mythical zone added to the midst, and this is yet another mythical variety of the human fruit. Okay, so we all know, of course, that the original variety of the human fruit was consumed by none other than the doctor of the Straw Hat crew, Tony Chopper. He was just a tiny little reindeer walking around in the tundra of Drum Island one day. All the other reindeers were kind of dicks. They wouldn't let him play in their reindeer games. But then he found a fruit that just happened to be shaped like a mushroom, which was a very dark kind of foreshadowing for what was going to happen later with Hero and everything. But anyway, Reindeer Chopper was a reindeer, so he pretty much just saw that as like, fruit, and then ate it, and then boom, became a human reindeer with the ability of advanced intellect, where he developed the Rumble Ball, became a doctor, and developed all these extra forms of his devil fruit because of that. So yeah, that's of course Chopper, just the normal variety of the human fruit. But then we also got Sengoku, who ate the human fruit model Daibutsu, which allows Sengoku to just turn into the flipping Buddha. Like, literally, I kept making all those Buddha references when Robin was fighting against Black Maria, like the Isaac Netero fight in Hunter x Hunter against Meruem. But no, Sengoku could legitimately make that happen. Sengoku versus Meruem. Who would win? I guess we don't know a lot about how Sengoku fights. We know he turns into a giant golden Buddha, and he has the power of Buddha shockwaves. Boom! You know, but other than that, we don't really know much else. He's the Fleet Admiral, though, or he used to be the Fleet Admiral. He's still a pretty tough customer, I would say. So yeah, that's a mythical variant of the human fruit there. But no, now we have yet another variant of the human fruit that's also mythical, that is the human fruit model Onyudo, or the giant monk yokai eaten by Onimaru. Alright, so you know what? There was a while there where I was really thinking that, like, the yokai in Wano were just, like, a legitimate thing. You know, because we saw Tenguyama Hitetsu, who's the Tengu, and then we also saw Onimaru, who's clearly modeled after a kitsune, a fox spirit that can transform, alright? So, and, you know, also Onigashima and the giant, the ancient giant that was there, the Skull Mountain and everything like that. So I'm like, man, maybe like 1,000 years ago, or maybe maybe even like further back than that, Wano literally was a land filled with yokai and demons and oni and all this stuff, and Kishins and stuff, like roaming the landscape, and it was horrible. And then maybe they all just died off at some point, and so Onimaru is all that remains of the Kitsune species, and Tenguyama is actually a Tengu and stuff like that. So, no, it doesn't seem to be the direction that Oda is taking it. However, it is kind of interesting that all of the mythical zones that are based on Japanese yokai or Japanese spirits ended up being in Wano country, which is based off of feudal Japan. Weird. So, you know, Yamato has the Makami fruit, Kaido has the dragon, although to be fair, Kaido did not get his mythical zone in Wano. He's in Wano right now, but he originally consumed that fruit at God Valley 38 years ago when he was 21 years old, and he actually got it from Big Mom. And you know, it's totally possible that the Ua Ua no Mi might have originally been from God Valley. Like, Big Mom found it on God Valley, then Roger and Garp showed up, and this giant battle ensued that, you know, completely wiped God Valley off the map, and then Kaido was about to die. Big Mom viewed Kaido as her little brother at this point, and she's like, here, have this fruit so you won't die. So that's where Kaido got it. As for Yamato's mythical Makami fruit, the wolf deity fruit, I like to think that Kaido did find that in Wano originally, because it was mentioned that the Makami used to be the deity that everybody in Wano worshipped, and then it kind of faded into obscurity. That's the same thing that happened in real life in ancient Japan with the Makami deities, the wolf gods, okay? So that was probably originally from Wano. We also have Orochi's fruit, the Yamato no Orochi. That was also something that Higuro Arashi had and gave to Orochi. Higuro Arashi traveled probably with the Rocks crew for a little while, from what we understand, or at least went out to sea, so maybe that's where she found the Yamato no Orochi fruit and brought it back to Wano. But it's something that is just very interesting that all these yokai and Japanese deity fruits are found right there in Wano itself, okay? But yeah, so the Onyudo, this was something consumed by Onimaru. Onimaru is the pet fox of Ushimaru. They were kind of like partners, right? And then eventually Ushimaru died, and so Onimaru took it upon himself to guard the graveyards of the Ringo region to make sure no grave robbers would steal the katanas of warriors of days long past, basically. Eventually Kawamatsu runs into him and they work together for a while. Kawamatsu sets himself up as Gyukimaru, the guardian of Bandit's Bridge. Eventually Kawamatsu gets captured after Hiyori leaves, and so it's up to Onimaru himself to protect the cemeteries once again, transforming into a giant monk that's referred to as like the thief of weapons. Like, he would always steal the weapons from people that would try to come into the graveyards in Wano, right? And so, because Onimaru was supposed to be a Kitsune, I just assumed, like, Onimaru could transform into anything, you know, right? So, no, it is a mythical zone, so we got another one of those, mythical human form model Onyudo. What is an Onyudo? Well, luckily for you, I have a little cheat sheet here for this. Okay, so Onyudos, I guess the literal translation, just by looking at the kanji, is like giant human, giant priest, you know, some variations therein. Now, when it says giant, sometimes they're only a little bit taller than regular humans, like maybe 7 feet tall or something. Other times, they're bigger than mountains themselves, like San Juan Wolf, Sarume, you know, Zunisha sizes, you know, in some cases, right? Sometimes they look very human, like literally just like a monk that's like really tall. That's an Onyudo. Other times they look like this from the Neo video game series. I've never played any of these, but damn, they look badass. Is that Kojiro Sasaki? I'm not sure. I gotta check out these games sometimes though. But those are also Onyudo there. So that's basically what we're working with here, and there's 4 categories of Onyudo. There's Onyudo, the most common ones that harm human beings, that cause misfortune, or just mess with humans just for the sake of messing with them. There's ones that harm humans. There's ones that aren't actually Onyudo themselves, and this is the category that Onimaru actually belongs to. They're other yokai that just have the ability to transform into Onyudo. From what I've understood with my research, Onyudo is sort of a catch-all term for any giant creature or yokai or spirit in Japanese myth. So if you're a giant, technically, even if you're something else, you could be called. Onyudo is sort of like the broad term for what you are, okay? So that's basically that. So there's other yokai that can transform into giant beings that could be considered Onyudo. And then finally, there's like a random miscellaneous category of Onyudo that, you know, we don't really know much about them. And even in Japanese myth, they're only regarded as sort of like, okay, we're already talking about Japanese myth. But from what I understand with this fourth category, it's like there's cryptids like Bigfoot in Japanese myths. So there's certain stories where like a traveler will run across like a giant footprint in the road that was obviously left by an Onyudo, but it doesn't have any more relevance to the story, and the traveler never meets the Onyudo, never knows what it looks like. It's just like the remnants. Like, they were traveling on the road, and they saw giant footprints and large heaps of trash, like a giant creature just had a huge meal here, and then moved on into the mountains, never to be seen by human eyes again. So, we're already talking about Japanese myth, but inside of Japanese myth, we have a subcategory of, like, cryptids from our world that's like, you know, I'm hunting for Bigfoot, you know, something like that. I don't know. So, like I said, the variety that cause harm to human beings is way more prevalent than any other type of Onyudo. Alright, so giant demons, basically. Sometimes they cause pain for humans. Like, they could, like, if they're huge, if they're the size of mountains, they could literally just step on cities and wreck towns and just pick up houses and just crush them, like, not a big deal. Sometimes they just mess with humans just because they can, you know? Like, a human is walking down the street and this Onyudo shows up and is just like, I'm gonna have fun with this today, and just picks them up and just chucks them into the ocean, like, I don't know, just because they can, you know? So they cause misfortune for humans. Then there's other kinds, though, and these are a little bit more rare in Japanese myth, but then there's Onyudo that actually help humans. Like, for example, if there's a big task that needs done, like, oh no, the water wheel in our town has been broken or clogged by all these, like, trees and branches, what are we going to do? And then the Onyudo shows up, and he's like a Bob the Builder version yokai. Actually, there was a video I did see with a Bob the Builder version yokai. I'll leave it here if you want to go see it. Check it out. But it's pretty terrifying. I think that was Meat Canyon that did that. He does some pretty cool animations. But anyway, so, the Onyudo would show up and be like, oh, this is a job for me, you know, can we fix it? Yes, we can. And he, like, picks up all the trees from the water wheel, and so the water wheel resumes spinning and the town is saved. Or maybe there's something that needs, like, moved or something. Like, oh, no, we need this giant mountain moved for some reason. Like, I got it, and just picks it up and moves it. All right, moving along, you know, that's kind of stuff there. And then we have the other kind of yokai that transform, and so that's like the Kitsune, which there are stories of Kitsune transforming into Onyudo in Japanese lore, which is why, you know, the story exists here in One Piece with Onimaru transforming into Gyukimaru. That's where it comes from, okay? And so it's like a mischievous fox spirit turning into what looks like a large human to either intimidate or to, like, communicate with humans and maybe to broker a deal. Because a lot of times, and this isn't even just with Japanese myth, but a lot of times in mythology in general, there's a lot of, like, trickster demons, you know, demons that are maybe pretty small, like imps or like little tiny devils or whatever, and they're not really physically powerful, but their strength lies in misleading human beings, like convincing the human to walk off a cliff, or the little imp or something transforms into a human, like a beautiful lady, and then, you know, they make a deal with the devil by accident, and then they end up going to hell for all eternity, you know, something like that, of that nature. Like, there's a lot of stories like that all over the place. And so Kitsune sort of fall into that line where they're little trickster foxes that transform into humans to, you know, convince them to go a certain way in their life, or lead them down a path of misfortune, or just mess with them in general, okay? Now, the case here, though, with Onimaru is that, yeah, he might be a little kind of a trickster sort of fox, but for the most part, he's a good person, right? Like, he basically just wants to follow in Ushimaru's footsteps, you know, his partner that died, you know, 20 years ago, and so Onimaru, by the way, is in his 60s. He's an old fox, which I'm pretty sure foxes don't live that long in like, actual, like, real life, so perhaps this is also maybe a case of eating the mythical zone. Maybe he extended his lifespan. I also talked about this involving Chopper, where I think the average lifespan of a reindeer is only like the teenage years, like 16, 17, 18 is how old like a regular reindeer in our world could live. And Chopper is already like, well, he's 17 right now, but he seems to be like in the prime of his life. And Oda also drew Chopper older. So maybe eating the devil fruits, depending on what kind of zone they are, extend your natural lifespan. Now, some people have said this because that doesn't make sense, because there's some like humans that have eaten animal fruits. Like, for example, you know, Dalton ate the bison fruit, and I don't think bison live as long as humans, so doesn't that mean Dalton should die sooner? Maybe the way it works is like, whatever your natural lifespan is, it can't get any shorter. So Dalton is a human, so if he eats the bison fruit, even if bison naturally in the wild die sooner than humans, he is a human, so he'll live longer. But Chopper, who was a reindeer, the humans' lifespan are longer than that, so it'll default to the human. Maybe that's how it works. I'm not really sure. I'm getting off topic already. But the point is, Onimaru is an old fox. He's like in the 60s, right? And so I'm not sure when he consumed the Onyudo fruit, but whatever, it might have extended his lifespan a bit there. And so, no, he just wants to protect the graveyard and all the katanas, because that's where, like, all of the great samurai of Wano, that was a tradition in Ringo, that when you're born, you're given a katana that you have your whole life, and then when you die, that katana serves as your grave marker, okay? And so even when Kawamatsu first showed up, Onimaru was not very trusting of him, but also it helps that he can transform into a human yokai, but still a human, because it also gives him the ability of speech to actually communicate, right? And it also makes sense when Zoro first ran into Gyukimaru, he was able to speak, but he was very, kind of stubborn, and even when Zoro kind of, like, explained his situation, Gyukimaru or Onimaru was like, no, I don't believe you, that you got Shusui from somewhere, no, you're just here to steal these swords like everybody else, you know? So maybe a more, like, animalistic way of just, like, fiercely protecting, his territory. Right, so it's like, yeah, he still has the capabilities of being a human, maybe not as high of an intelligence that Chopper received from the regular human fruit, and Sengoku was already a human, of course, but still, you know, up there, to the point where he could communicate verbally and stuff, and is like, hey, I know you're trying to deceive me, you know, you have Shusui. To be fair, Zoro's story about Shusui was like, I got it from Ryuma's zombie, you know, it's just like, even a regular person be like, yeah, I think you're bullshitting me on that one, I'm not giving you back that sword, right? Okay. But yeah, so right now in the story, though, Onimaru, I guess, is still in the Ringo region. There was that moment when Odin showed up at Onigashima, and it turned out to be one of Kanjuro's drawings. But one of the ideas, one of the theories, was it might have been Onimaru transformed into Odin, because we didn't know if, you know, Onimaru could only transform into Gyukimaru, or if there was, like, other forms that Onimaru could take. But no, it's not even possible that he could have done that now that we learn about the secrets of his fruit. Other than that, and just being a yokai, though, like, would there be any abilities that Onimaru could receive other than just being a really big human? Maybe it's something similar to Sanjuan Wolf's fruit, because there's so many different varieties of Onyudo, like I said. Some Onyudo are only slightly taller than humans. Gyukimaru was pretty tall. I mean, Zoro is about average height, and the Onyudo Gyukimaru was, like, towering over Zoro. So, you know, but could Gyukimaru grow to the size of, like, a building or a mountain if he really wanted to, because that would fall in line with Onyudo? Maybe not, because I feel like if Onimaru had that ability, like, he could transform into a giant yokai, he would just do that to maybe kind of liberate Wano. Like, screw this, I'm transforming into a mountain and I'm going to crush Kaido. Probably would have not have succeeded, but it would have been cool to see, and maybe Onimaru would have tried that already, just to be more intimidating. But no, I think this is the only form that Onimaru is capable of transforming into. I guess you get the clothing and everything alongside that. You know, you get the clothing and all the weapons and everything when you transform. Maybe it's like D&D rules. Like, if you have an ability to, like, polymorph or transform into an animal or something in D&D, and you're wearing armor and a sword or a shield or whatever, it just, like, melds with your new animal form. And then when you transform back, you get all that stuff back. You don't have to, like, take off all your equipment to transform. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. It's also interesting that the way that Onimaru transforms into his yokai form, very unusual, because it's like a puff of smoke, like a lot of the ninjutsu abilities that we've seen in Wano, used by, like, Shinobu and Fuku Rokuju and Raizo and everybody like that, right? So that was something else that kind of led me to think, like, it wasn't a devil fruit, it was actually just a natural ability that this Kitsune had to transform, right? Now, at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, this is Wano, and Oda's taken a long time to get here, and a lot of this stuff is based on Japanese lore, so Oda is sort of bending the rules a little bit from what we know about, just to make it, like, more presentable, right? So it's like, yes, Onimaru could have transformed into the Onyudo the regular Zoan way, like, his body actually, like, polymorphs into the Onyudo, like, we see that happen, and there's a hybrid form. We actually haven't seen the hybrid form yet, But to make it more like theatrical and fit with like the Japanese themes here, Oda had him transform in just a puff of smoke, which I think is like the traditional way of how a kitsune would transform. The kitsune wouldn't transform like beast morphers or anything like that. It would be more mystical, more magical, just poof, and now the kitsune is a beautiful woman or something, and then poof, back to a fox, and and then it runs away into the woods, something like that, right? So, I think that's Oda just having fun, but sometimes, I look into this too much, and I'm just like, no, he can't be a Zoan because he transformed in a puff of smoke. It has to be something else. Is there a yokai species in Wano? Is Tengu-Yama an actual Tengu? What's going on, Also, Black Maria can transform into a spider lady, which is another form of yokai. Now, obviously, Black Maria has the ancient Zoan model, Rosa Magalia Gravigelli, but it's also important to mention here that Black Maria was born in Wano. So maybe that leads into something. I'm assuming she got her devil fruit from Kaido, but considering there's already so many, yokai fruits in Wano to begin with, there's a yokai Yamato no Orochi over there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have involving Onyudo. Oh no, there's one thing. Oh, I missed this. Holy crap. Okay. So, as I said, Onyudo is kind of a catch-all term for all these different giants in Japanese folklore. Okay. One such variation of Onyudo, or something that could be classified as an Onyudo, are Umibozus, which are like the giants of the sea, which is what Wadatsume was originally classified as. When they first saw Wadatsume, they were like, it's an Umibozu, and he was even called as an Umibozu plenty of times during the Fishman Island arc. So I just wanted to bring that up there. Like, there's a lot of different classifications here. Pretty much any giant is considered an Onyudo. But, yeah, I don't really think we're going to... we'll see Onimaru at least one more time before the end of Wano. I don't know if Onimaru is going to, like, travel to Onigashima with Luffy. Like, Luffy is about to, like, okay, Momo, let's go! Let's ride toward Onigashima! And then, like, all of a sudden, Onimaru or Gyukimaru runs out of the tree line and just like, wait! Take me with you! Luffy's like, I have no idea who you are or what your story is, but you look badass! You get on the back of this pink dragon and let's go beat up a blue dragon! And, Gyukimaru's like, alright, he takes out his, like, Naginata or whatever, let's do it! Okay, in all seriousness, that is something that Luffy would do, right? If Gyukimaru ran up to Luffy and just like, take me with you! You don't know anything about me, but take me with you! Luffy would be like, yeah, I think you'll help. Come on, let's go. So that's just how that goes. But no, yeah. So if Onimaru isn't going to help with Onigashima, probably would just stay in Ringo, because that was his mission in life. After Kaido has been defeated, and as we're wrapping up Wano, Zoro said he wants to visit Ryuma's crypt before he leaves, to kind of maybe pay respects to Ryuma, also maybe to say goodbye to the Shusui, and also just thank Ryuma, like, thank you for, allowing me to have this sword, even though it wasn't technically you, it was just your body animated by the soul of my skeleton friend, yo-ho-ho! But, I want to see Zoro do the yo-ho-ho-ho now, that would be really funny, but, he just wants to thank Ryuma, maybe we see a spirit of Ryuma over him. It would be perfect if Tengu-Yama, and maybe both of them, Gyukimaru, show Zoro to his shrine, which is sort of like, he's considered the sword god, so I would imagine it's a place, especially since it was, grave robbed by Moria, years ago. I would imagine after that incident, they put it under high security, they maybe buried it in a tomb, maybe they put it like there's like a maze you have to travel through, like, Egyptian tombs or whatever to reach Ryuma's actual shrine, since it was already grave robbed once, So, Gyukimaru definitely knows where it is, though, because he lives in the graveyard. So maybe he would like, alright, I'll allow you to go visit Ryuma's grave one last time, and then that's what happens there. So we'll see Onimaru one more time. But when it comes to, like, extra abilities, other than just a boost of strength, intimidation kind of situation, so yeah, we'll probably see Onimaru one more time. But as for, like, the actual transformations, I gotta admit, this Mythical Zoan, like, let's go down the list here, okay? So Marco's Phoenix Fruit allows him to have the Flames of Rejuvenation to basically heal any wound, and even the wounds of others in short-term kind of situations, so that's pretty impressive. Plus, he can fly. Then we have Kaido's Dragon Fruit. Like, do I even need to say it? He's a giant fish dragon duck. He can breathe fire, he can breathe lightning, he can breathe wind, he can breathe sharper wind, he he could breathe all this kind of stuff. So that's really impressive. Plus, he can fly and summon the flaming clouds and everything. Orochi has the Yamato no Orochi. Now, we don't know anything like special he can do 100%, but I'm going to assume it's because of his fruit that he was able to survive being decapitated by Kaido and then by the scabbards. So if it just gives you extra lives, that's definitely a benefit. Sengoku, of course, has the Buddha fruit. He has the shockwave, so that's something. Probably also other things involved with the Buddha that we just don't know about. Then we have Katarina Devon, of course, part of Blackbeard's crew that can transform actually into a Kitsune or a nine-tailed fox to transform into other things. Okay, so that's actually interesting. So we have a regular fox, Onimaru. I guess he's not a regular fox. He's a Koma Kitsune, just like all the Koma animals that exist in Wano, but pretty much a regular fox that ate a mythical zone that can transform into a yokai just like a Kitsune would in actual Japanese myth. But then we have Katarina Devon, who's a human that actually ate the Kitsune fruit that allows her to transform into anything I guess she wants. So that's weird. Then we have Onimaru that I already mentioned. Then we have Yamato, who has the Makami fruit that gives her the ability to control ice, I guess, like all the different icicle and glacier abilities. So that's the situation there. But then when we get to Onimaru, he really doesn't have anything mythical. He just has the ability to speak like a human would, but that's nothing crazy because, you know, Chopper was able to do that with just the regular human fruit. Nothing mythical about that. So, I don't know, there might be some other ability that Onimaru is capable of. Maybe longevity is the other thing. You know, maybe Onimaru will live to be like 900 years old or something now because he consumed the Onyudo fruit, because it's a yokai, so they live longer. Maybe something like that. I'm not really sure. Or maybe he had other abilities that we just didn't shown, you know, displayed, you know, during his appearances so far. But yeah, that's a little weird thing, and I wanted to talk about that. Also wanted to bring up Onyudo because it's always fun to talk. But yeah, that's the situation there with Onimaru. It was mentioned in the Vivre card, but I wanted to make a separate video about it just because it is kind of interesting. Plus, you get to talk about Japanese lore and, you know, myth and everything, and that's always really fun. So, yeah, let's move on to Bat Facts. Why not? Yeah, thanks to Enrique for that title. I'm guessing I might just do, like, every month or every couple of months, I might just pick a different animal and do facts relating to that animal, and that's just the new thing. Like, whenever I run out of bat facts, or I feel like, okay, I've done enough of those, let's do, I don't know, beetle facts, you know, Beetleborg facts, or giraffe facts, or whatever. We'll just go down the line. Maybe we could go alphabetically, because we started with ant facts, now we're doing bat facts. Maybe next I'll have to pick an animal that starts with the letter C, and I could do facts relating to them. But anyway, we're not talking about any of that today. We're talking about bat facts, and this is the Raffinesque's big-eared bat. And as you can see from this image, yeah, it's got some pretty big ears. Now, these bats are particularly rare, sort of. So even in the areas where they actually live, which is like southwestern, southern United States and around there, even in that territory, they're kind of hard to come by because they nest in very old trees, so typically like in swamps and stuff. So, you know, they're not like endangered like critically or anything like that. They're just kind of rare to find. But they live a pretty long time. There's one variety, the Raffinesque's bat, which live about 10 years. And then there's another version called Townsend's big-eared bat. I guess Raffinesque and Townsend's, the apostrophe S, I guess those are the names of the people that discovered the bats. So go out there in the world, and if you find a bat, I guess you can name it after your last name or your first name or whatever. Those bats, Townsend's bats, can live up to 30 years at the longest, so that's very impressive there. They eat fruits and insects like a lot of microbats do. They hunt using echolocation. And also, let's learn a little bit about how bats, or not even just bats, but birds as well, in the broader sense, kind of consume food. So there's two different types of like foraging here, or hunting, that birds and bats, you know, typically do. There's other animals that do this too, but it's mostly birds and bats, okay? So one type is called hawking. You know, not hockey, but hawking, okay? Where hawks and falcons and eagles and stuff do this, where they'll, like, you know, be up in the sky and just with their intense eyesight, because the eyesights of, like, hawks and falcons and stuff are very good, they'll see animals on the ground and then they'll just dive bomb and, like, pick up the mouse and then just eat it. Owls do this as well. So that's called hawking. But then there's another form called gleaning. And gleaning is like if, you know, smaller birds, like if you ever look out, because this happens all the time, I'll just look out in the yard in the morning and there'll be robins, like, you know, jumping around my yard and just like, you know, picking, you know, worms and stuff or insects out of the ground. Or they'll be on like the side of the house, like, you know, and just trying to pick at like the side of the house where like worms and insects like crawl under the porch or whatever. That's called gleaning, where like the bird basically sits and waits and then pecks at the ground to get a worm or something. And that's another form of hunting or foraging that they do, okay? So microbats typically use this gleaning method where they just kind of sit around and wait for the insect, or they'll pick at the ground or whatever to get them out of there. So yeah, there you go. There's your bat fact and also somewhat bird fact for the day. All right, well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. What's coming up next? Actually, okay, we actually got some Bleach information involving Kenpachi Zaraki and Yachiru and how that whole thing works. So I just found out about that today, so I'm going to make a video about that, I think, tomorrow. So that'll be Friday's video, because Kubo actually revealed some information on exactly how Kenpachi Zaraki's, like, Zanpakuto, Bankai, I almost said Kenpachi Zaraki's Devil Fruit, but how that works. So look forward to that tomorrow. Also, I'm doing the YouTube Shorts now, if you've noticed. I don't know how long that's gonna last, or, you know, how well it's gonna work, because, you know, it's kind of a new thing that YouTube came out with, and I decided to give it a try. So what I need for that, though, is send me some questions that you think could be answered within like a 30 to 60 second, probably closer to 60 seconds, knowing me. Even with the shorts, I'm going to maximize the time there. So yeah, give me some questions like below that could be answered in that short time frame. Questions that wouldn't really fit for like a whole video, but I could answer right there in like that sort of like shortened setting. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking and Barry signing out. I'm going to eat the rest of this cookie now.